Yeah. Okay. So you guys all played Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you do an impressions video, Jake? I saw you fire off a tweet.
Yeah, I fired off a tweet. I mentioned it in a couple of videos as like a small segment.
Okay. All right. So tell me, what did you think of Assassin's Creed Shadows?
I'm pretty harsh on it. I need to, see more of it. Like obviously it's just impressions, but I didn't walk away from the preview like, ooh, I want to play more, or like even seeing where the blanks still need to be filled in for me. The story didn't really grip me. The gameplay didn't really grip me. The only thing that really did was like the world was cool. And I like that they actually kind of committed to the characters feeling completely distinct. It was nice to mess around with, but then that kind of creates its own problems, which I feel like you've talked about a little bit. Where like I just want to play as an assassin. Like I just want to play as Naue. I just want to climb up buildings and assassinate people and do that whole thing. But then the problem is when I'm doing that, at this point, like the game, and I had some abilities unlocked and I had like a tool set. It just felt very simple. It just felt very like, I'm like, okay, by the numbers, I know what I'm doing. And I don't think it's because I've played a bunch of Assassin's Creed games and I'm cynical. I think it just felt flat gameplay wise. Like it felt like it didn't have enough. The enemies didn't really engage me. The layout of the encounters, except for that one main last quest,
The
like,
mission,
yeah, like none of them really gripped me. But then, it's so hard to not compare to Ghost of Tsushima. I try not to.
For sure.
They're different things. They're trying different things. But even like the world and like embracing the Japan setting and embracing the history and just embracing like what Japanese people did at that time feels kind of like a weaker version of that. Like, did you do a lot of the like?
How do you mean?
Did you do a lot of the objectives where you can like walk around and like paint pictures of the animals?
I know what you mean.
And I was like,
well,
Didn't know that.
every
Sure.
single side mission was not. You weren't able to complete it because it was in an area outside the preview area.
Right.
At least
Okay.
in the
But
bit
I think
that I
you talk
played.
about the side activities.
Little
Yeah,
activities,
no, like
yeah.
anytime I try to do anything else, like the side activities, observing animals.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
painting an animal or something. Like, yeah.
I think they're like just on a positive side at the very least. Like, I thought it was like surprisingly gory. I think it was gorier than like the last. I was like,
Sure.
holy
Well, it's not
shit.
going to be in Japan. You hear that?
Oh,
It's like,
they're like,
been censored, right?
Yeah.
What is that? Is it the gore that's been
It's
censored?
it's chopping off of limbs.
The limb, the dismemberment.
Yes,
Interesting.
that's the coolest
Interesting.
part.
Okay. Wow.
Damn.
That's Japan is pretty okay with that usually, right? Like Japanese games are pretty gory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's odd. It's very odd. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I like the gore, and I also liked, as Naue, like I like the grappling hook, and like being able to like use it to just go up to a ceiling and just kind of like Spider-Man hide up there.
Sure.
Like there's
sure.
definitely some opportunity for high level play getting kind of crazy. I wasn't able to see that in 4 hours. So yeah, for me the jury's still out preview wise. I've also been really harsh on Assassin's Creed for a while now. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
acknowledge that like the newer games aren't really for me as an older fan, but the new ones are extremely popular. They've sold a lot. So like even going with that and like, oh, okay, it's not trying to be Ezio. Like I got to look at it just as Odyssey, Origins, Valhalla. Like even as one of those, it didn't quite grip me as much.
No. I am in the same boat as you. I had a lot of issues. So played a lot of Assassin's Creed. I think Syndicate ranks as one of my favorites because they did the dual protagonist thing where you had Jacob Fry, who would be more of the brawler, and then you had Evie, who would be more of the stealth. However, if you
Did
did
you
get
like that
into
one because
com-
they talk like you? They're all like, it's like, oh,
all
we're like
right,
Lucy.
mate. What? But if you were in an encounter with either one of them, you felt very capable, and you felt like you weren't going to really struggle. Whereas I felt the balance of this one was so off. I hated playing as Naue because if you
Really? Interesting.
well, so I also this is a complaint, and this is the thing where I fed this back to them because I felt like they should not have done this remotely, because they were beaming a 1080p version of the game to me that I was playing on a 4K TV.
Yeah.
And there was a section where I'm walking in the dark and I couldn't see shit. And I'm like, this is not the best way of experiencing this game for me as someone, you know, who's getting impressions together and stuff. But I'm also very acutely aware that that is not indicative of the final experience. So I'm taking that part out of kind of how I felt about the game. But I felt that Naue was just a little too... I don't know, it felt like stuff would get a bit hairy too quickly for my liking, whereas Yasuke, the complete opposite. Like, I would go in and just bonk someone on the head with a giant stick, and I would just do that. Like, I wouldn't even bother trying to hide. I would just walk in, like, kick down the front door and just hit everyone, and I would be completely fine. Yes. So for me, there wasn't a nice middle ground of the assassin that I like to play as, which is one that can like defend itself and stuff. And I'm also in the same mind as Jake, where I think these games are putting way too much into them. And I think the reason I liked Ghost of Tsushima so much when it came out, because I platinumed that game, is that it was an exercise in restraint. Like, yes, it's an open world game. Yes, there are activities and stuff, but it was all doable. And it was kind of a mastery of the different stances and stuff. And it didn't give you too much to kind of get to mess around with. And I really enjoyed that because I felt like I was good at the game, because I knew exactly what I had. I knew exactly which stances I had. I knew exactly which moves to do. Whereas in Assassin's Creed, and again, this is like, even when I was playing Valhalla and stuff, when you get more, what do you call it, like equipment, and you're getting different things, and I'm like, I can't be arsed, like flicking through all this. Like, it just feels like a barrier for me. Because I remember playing OG Assassin's Creed, where all you really had was a hidden blade and social stealth, and, you know, it was very, very pared back. And I kind of miss those days. And I think as soon as they started putting in like bomb crafting, was that in Revelations and stuff, and I was just like, I'm just not interested in that. I did like the fact that you could call in sort of, they had that sort of brotherhood-ish kind of thing where you had your...
someone come in from a bush and stab someone for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I did like that, and... you know, I do think the world was very beautiful. But again, I just took one look at it and I was like, this is big. And it's going to really need a really strong story to pull me through this. And at the beginning, it's not really what I experienced. I don't know. I don't know. It just isn't doing it really for me. Like, I will play it. I will definitely give it a better, you know, like 20 hours or something, like, to see if it, you know, maybe because obviously they do like a time skip in the preview to get you to an area where you're more kitted out, and so maybe there's some really good story stuff in there that I'm going to be really intrigued by. But I found myself, like, if I knew I was going into a combat situation, I would just switch. I would be Naue walking around, and then I would switch just to get through the combat,
just to bonk people.
It's really interesting that, like, all three of us are just not really into this. That's kind of unusual for us, I think, especially for a game like this. It's not like offensively bad. It's just also not great, if you know what I mean. Like, it's just, there's just this kind of meh vibe that comes out of it. I think someone else was talking about, like, Ghost of Tsushima, and obviously the comparisons are going to come. And we haven't played this whole thing, so we can't compare it to Ghost of Tsushima, but it's clear that Ghost of Tsushima was doing the Ubisoft thing better than Ubisoft was in Valhalla and I think in other games, right? So I guess my question is that, like, how did Sucker Punch manage to do that better? Why did that Ghost of Tsushima work so well? And what are we not seeing in Shadows so far that makes us think, oh yeah, they're on the right track?
I think Ghost of Tsushima was able to come with no baggage. It wasn't trying to hit hallmarks of another franchise, hallmarks of another publisher with, like, what they specialize in terms of at least gameplay and open world design. And then I think also Ghost of Tsushima had a lot of really good open world activities that at first when you look, it's like, oh, they just put a bunch of things on a map. But as you do them, you feel like you really want to get them because they're nice, they're interesting, and they tie back in really nice to the progression and the main gameplay loop. And they all kind of fit in the world, and it like made sense in Jin Sakai's adventure. Does that make,
I think you hit the nail on the head with regard to baggage. I think playing early Assassin's Creed games, I think the Animus is such a cool narrative. Oh, hi, Jelly. Such a cool narrative thing to tie everything together. But the first Civilization stuff and everything, I would say, from Black Flag onwards has just been so convoluted and just so... Like, I would get annoyed in the more recent ones if they would pull you out of the Animus to do the modern day stuff. Because I was like, I just don't care. I don't care. But obviously for Assassin's Creed, it gave them a vehicle to do things like the history tour, which I think is a really cool use of all the research they've done. I think it's a really cool way to introduce history to people. And I think with Ghost just being laser focused on telling Jin's story and the story of Tsushima and the Mongols, like, it just felt like a purer experience in a way. And also, once you see the Assassin's Creed formula, I think this is also a case of us growing up and aging with Assassin's Creed. It's like Bond. It's, the Bond from your childhood is your Bond, right? Yep. The Assassin's Creed that you grew up with is kind of your Assassin's Creed. So I'm like a 2 Brotherhood. Though that was my absolute favorite peak Assassin's Creed for me. And every time the franchise has gotten a bit bigger and stuff, it's like I found things to like about it. Like,
but it's just not the same.
Like, Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye, that's my Bond.
Yeah, when he drove a tank through a fucking wall, they've never done that again. You'll never top that.
Invincible.
That was cinema.
Peak cinema. But that's just how I feel about it, because I'm also at a point in my life where I just don't have enough time, and the games just keep getting bigger, and I feel like old woman yells at cloud.
But we also don't know how big it's going to be, so
exactly.
I'm not. You know what I mean? I do think you touched on something very that I totally agree with in relation to purity, and I think what made Ghost of Tsushima feel great was that it did feel quite pure, in that it did have. It will guide you where to go with the wind, for example. Like, that is what you did. That was a cool thing. And a bird would swoop in over your head to, like, guide you to a location, or the little fox that you had to follow, or whatever it was.
And
right?
it was a fun gimmick. But it was a nice thematic gimmick, which I like.
Correct. It was like, how do we accomplish the same objective, but do so in a way that feels more organic and immersive for that setting? And I think for that reason, it felt you were doing the same Ubisoft thing that you were always doing, but it felt fresh, it felt interesting, and it felt like more immersive in a way that, and I never felt that in Shadows. They say it's like a less map marker driven game. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I was still following map markers in Shadows when I was playing it.
What are you on about? When you're like, I mean, it even did line on ground.
I know that 100%. But
a very unsubtle line,
there was literally an article that did the headline that ran like maybe last week talking about Ubisoft saying that this is a less map marker driven game, and it's like,
look, they've done this before. Like, we've fallen for this before. When Far Cry, the one in America, Far Cry 5,
yeah.
When 5 dropped, they had tried to really retool exploration and how you discovered things on the map, and it felt novel at first, but ultimately it still kind of was just like a different. What's the phrase? Like, you put lipstick on a pig. It's like a different. I don't know.
It was different colored M&Ms.
Yeah,
different colored M&Ms.
Exactly. So I kind of was getting the same feeling here when like I got to see how exploration works, and it's like, oh, open the map, and then click on a thing to send scouts out, and it's like an expendable resource.
Oh, that pissed me off so much.
And then it just reveals icons on the map, and then you're like, oh, okay, fuck me, I guess.
But also, like, they like revamped stealth, and they showed like new animations, and I'm like, okay, that's nice. But I don't really give a fuck about animations.
You know what I mean? Like, you're still hiding in a bush, or
still hiding in a bush
you can lie
whistling.
down in the bush.
Okay, and look, again, that's cool, but at the same time, it just feels like, I don't know, man. It seems like such a minor thing that we're celebrating the fact that you can finally crouch down after 25 years of video games. Do you know what I mean? Like, that so again, no shade to them. There also is the light ability to like turn off lights, and yeah, but that didn't really make itself very felt.
I used that once by accident.
Gimmicky, totally. You don't really need it, and so I just think. So yeah, I think the point about Ghost of Tsushima, yeah, I agree. It's more pure and it feels more immersive, and because it's doing the same sort of things, but it's really going the extra mile in terms of how do we dress this up and make it feel like it's not actually that thing, even though it totally is that thing, right? But then there's also just the straight up combat, and the combat in Ghost of Tsushima, very good. It's great combat. It feels fantastic. It's got it's got like some weight to it. It has a skill cap. It's simple. It is rock paper scissors, but it really feels great. Whereas this combat feels terrible. And I don't like it. And it's a modern Assassin's Creed combat. It's never felt good.
It's hacky.
Always just it's hacky, totally.
It's interesting, like if we are doing the comparison game, it's absolutely like a feedback tangibility thing where
absolutely.
I've seen some content creators capture gameplay footage for Shadows and try and make the combat look cool, where the character just stands there and perfectly combos and perfectly parries and strikes an enemy down in one hit. But it doesn't have that same cling clang, like feedback response, camera control, emphasis on that. Like it doesn't have any of that, and it doesn't necessarily have to. But it's when you're looking at all these things and then you're like, wait a minute, you can't help it.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Yeah, so I feel, I mean, and obviously we keep saying this as a disclaimer, and we do, and I know we all mean it, which is that you can't fully judge a game based on 5 hours of play. Yep. Okay, and absolutely, we'll play through the whole thing and we'll come to our own conclusions. But at the same time, we have played a lot of Ubisoft games over our life. We have played a lot of Assassin's Creed. I put hundreds of hours into the series. So you know what this thing is when you pick it up, and you can immediately sense the major differences because we know this series really well. And right now, a lot of it is very familiar. And where it's not familiar, the whole splitting out of Yasuke and Nawe, where he can't really parkour or stealth and she can, I don't think that's a good idea. No, I don't want an Assassin's Creed protagonist who can't climb a tower. That's not what I asked for.
Oh, did you jump into? Did you do any dives?
I tried to do one dive.
I did. He falls. There's an animation for him landing, and he's like, oh, and he like
no way,
he like lands on that.
Drakes.
Yeah, and he stumbles out of the hay, and he's like, oh man.
That's actually pretty funny. But I tried to do a dive off the top of a tower. It turns out I couldn't dive off the top of the tower. I had to like lower myself down a few levels before I could find the stick that lets me do the jump. And I'm like, that's again not what this is supposed to be. Like we're just meant to get to the top and then leap off. Anyway. My point is, It's not. I think Ubisoft as a company is in a lot of trouble.
Oh God, yeah.
We all know that. That's not a surprise. They've only just recently announced the closure of a UK-based studio, and 180 people were let go. Tencent is circling to buy them, and the Gilmore family seem really keen on that idea, so long as they can maintain control of the company somehow. And it's very clear that it's not going to be a good year for Ubisoft, even if Shadows goes well. I think that's where things are. But I think at a fundamental game design level, like we've been talking about the necessity for Ubisoft to evolve its core franchises for a long fucking time now. Like we have. Like I just feel like writing. I feel like the entire time that I've been on YouTube, I've been complaining about how bad Ubisoft's writing is. That has never changed in like a decade. You know what I mean? And it's like, when is that going to change? Because I certainly saw no evidence of that changing here in this game. You know what I mean? I think Outlaws had some surprisingly good writing when it was allowed to, but the structure of that game often meant that it couldn't have good writing because it had to assemble all of its stories in a random order, which is exactly the same thing that crippled Mirage, where this game structure wouldn't let you tell a cohesive story, and so it all had to be fragmented and, frankly, bad. So Ubisoft just like needs a top to bottom reset, and I'm really hoping that like Assassin's Creed Hex or whatever it is that Clint Hocking, is he still on it? Clint Hocking?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I hope that whatever he's doing is just like ripping out every foundational element of this series and going like, okay, let's start again. Same with Far Cry. I don't know what they're doing with that right now, but I hope. Go on.
No crouch button. Back to just being a guy walking around.
Sure.
No crouching. I'm talking, we're back to AC1, AC2.
That's right, exactly. No attack button. No attack button, just a parry button. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah,
that's
one
all
hit,
it is.
Cool kill animations.
Throwing coins on the ground.
Yep, that's
paying
right. All that
paying
shit.
a
Having an
bunch of
arm.
women to walk around me.
Pushing people like this, the physics.
Oh yeah,
all that.
I missed that.
Ubisoft, I just think really needs a big shake-up in its core game design. Obviously the company's going to go through some challenges this year, and I hope that it's the impact on staff is as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
But I suspect it won't be. I also hope that it becomes an opportunity for Ubisoft to like really do some root and branch redesign of its core franchises and its approach to game making, because I think that they have spent 2 generations making games the same way and it's landed them here, and it needs to change because obviously that is why they are in the position they are in right now.
And they have killer IP. They have stuff that people want more.
Oh, man.
They have stuff that people want to be good. I want Shadows to be good. I want I want to see the return of the Rabbids, the minions of the video game world. You know, like they have all this stuff.
No, delete them. Delete them. No rabbits, please.
Yeah, no.
No rabbits. Rayman, yes. Rabbits, no.
Are they perverts? Like, what are their what's their
Kinda.
thing? What are
They've got a vibe.
Yeah,
They've definitely got that
atrocious
vibe.
vibe.
They're on some lists for sure. Absolutely. So anyway, that's Assassin's Creed. I think we've
That's
talked it to
Assassin's
death.
Creed.
Nothing else we can say until the reviews hit, which is going to be in March.
Yeah, end of the month.
I wonder if they're going to delay the game. Because I
Again?
think there
No,
was a
they
lot-
can't do
No,
it again.
I
man.
wonder because
There's
I think
no
there was a
way.
lot of I think there was a lot of mixed feedback in this preview cycle. There was a lot of positivity, sure, but there was also a lot of stuff. And I do think that Ubisoft really need this one to just like be an absolute haymaker. And if they can maybe make some gains in some areas inside of 3 months, maybe they'd think about it. I'll put it that way, right? I don't have any inside information, by the way. No one ever fucking tells me anything. I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is that, like, I do wonder because, as I said, Ubisoft really need this one to work. And if they've already delayed it a little bit, why does it need to go out in March? It could also go out in August. That would be fine as well.
Is it
you
a
know?
financial year thing?
I think they've already ticked over into the new financial year in March. So I think that is another reason why
Isn't
they
it
could further
March
delay it.
31st, April 1st?
I remember hearing
in-
that their financial year ends end of February, but I could be wrong about that.
It depends. Like, I assume is it Paris or is it Canada?
I don't know. So, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, I'm happy to be proven wrong. Always want to be proven wrong.
Totally.
Same.
Totally
You
agree.
know,
Totally
10 hours, it might be awesome. 20 hours, it might get really cool. We'll see.
Like a JRPG, man.
Yeah,
Just gotta
exactly.
get through that first
Exactly.
20 hours,
Yep,
and then it's
just
good.
Get to the open world part.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally.
That's how it goes.
Fucking Final Fantasy 13. I will never forgive them for that. Man.